Now, having grasped the epic journey of the wave itself, we must turn our gaze from the horizon to the ground beneath our feet, to that seemingly inert, granular strip we call the beach, because what you're standing on is not a static stage for the ocean's performance, but a dynamic, living and breathing entity that changes with every single wave, every single tide, and every single grain of sand, acting as the planet's ultimate shock absorber and a complex filtration system that is vital to global ecological health. And the data reveals that beaches are among the most rapidly evolving landscapes on Earth, constantly migrating, breathing, and transforming in a dance with the sea that is so precise it can be modeled by physics, yet so chaotic it defies long-term prediction. The composition of a beach is a library of local and distant history. The sand's color, grain size, and mineralogy tell a story of source rock, transport energy, and age. The classic golden sand of many coasts is often rich in quartz, a durable mineral that survives the long journey from mountain erosion. While white tropical sands frequently consist of pulverized coral and calcium carbonate from shells and marine organisms, and black volcanic sands, like those in Hawaii or Iceland, are the stark, dramatic evidence of nearby basaltic lava fragmenting upon contact with the cold ocean, each grain's shape, smoothed and rounded by endless tumbling, speaks to its travel time and energy exposure, with perfectly spherical grains being ancient veterans of this geologic war. But the beach is not a uniform sheet. It is a highly structured system of zones, each with its own specific function and behavior, starting from the offshore bar through the surf zone, up the dynamic beach face, the intertidal area we walk on, to the berm, the back shore, and often backed by dunes or cliffs. The most critical and visually dramatic process is the phenomenon of longshore drift, where waves approaching the shore at an angle rather than perfectly perpendicular generate a current that runs parallel to the coastline, a powerful conveyor belt that can transport hundreds of thousands of cubic meters of sediment annually, literally moving entire beaches down the coast over time. This is why coastal engineers build those wooden or rock walls, extending into the sea, in an often futile attempt to interrupt this natural flow and trap sand on one side, a stark example of humanity trying to free the dynamic process, usually with unintended consequences downstream. The beach profile itself is in a perpetual state of seasonal flux. During calm summer conditions, waves tend to be constructive, pushing sand onshore and building a wide, gentle berm, while the storm waves of winter are destructive, with their powerful backwash pulling vast quantities of sand offshore into submerged bars, dramatically narrowing the visible beach. This seasonal pulse is the beach breathing, and remote sensing data using LiDAR and satellite imagery has quantified this cycle with astonishing precision, showing vertical sand level changes of meters and horizontal shoreline retreats of tens of meters in a single storm season. Furthermore, the beach acts as a giant natural water filter. As waves wash up and percolate down through the sand, the porous matrix filters out pollutants, bacteria, and nutrients, with studies showing a single meter of sand can remove over 90% of pathogenic bacteria from seawater, a critical ecosystem service for protecting coastal groundwater and nearshore ecosystems. The moist intertidal zone is also a bustling metropolis of life, from microscopic megafauna living between the grains to burrowing mollusks like clams and crustaceans like crabs, all adapted to this constantly shifting cell and environment, forming a base of a food web that supports shorebirds, indirectly human fisheries. The dunes behind the beach, stabilized by specialized grasses, are the fortress walls storing sand and providing a buffer against storm surges, their health directly linked to the beach's ability to recover from erosion events. When we disrupt this system by building seawalls that reflect wave energy and starve the beach of sand, by mining sand for construction, or by destroying dunes for ocean views, we dismantle this natural defense and filtration system, leading to catastrophic losses during storms and the degradation of water quality. The pastel sky above, often a signal of transitional, calm weather, thus presides over a landscape that is anything but static. It is a battleground of physics, a living filter, a seasonal shapeshifter, and a vast archive of planetary history, all contained within the humble strip of land we casually lounge upon during a holiday. Understanding this transforms the beach from a mere recreational space into a profound testament to Earth's dynamic systems. But the story grows even deeper because the water within those waves holds a universe of its own. We have followed the wave's energy and understood the beach's dynamism, but now we must plunge into the aqueous realm itself, into that rolling, foaming, aerated water of the surf zone, because within that chaotic mix of liquid and air exists one of the most chemically, biologically, and physically unique environments on the planet, the sea foam and the nearshore water column. A hyper-oxygenated, nutrient-rich, ion-charged broth that has tangible, measurable effects on human physiology and psychology. And emerging scientific data is beginning to quantify why humans don't just enjoy the beach, but are fundamentally, evolutionarily, and therapeutically drawn to it, with effects ranging from enhanced immune function to measurable reductions in stress biomarkers, suggesting that our pull toward the waves under a pastel sky is not merely aesthetic, but is a form of deep biological programming and environmental medicine. Let's start with the very air you breathe at the beach. That distinctive, crisp, salty scent is not just a smell. It is a pharmacopoeia of negative ions and marine aerosols. When waves break, particularly in that violent, plunging action, they tear apart the water surface and catapult millions of tiny water droplets into the air, a process known as wave-generated. These droplets carry with them seawater constituents, including salt, sodium chloride, magnesium, potassium, iodine, and even organic compounds produced by marine algae and bacteria. More importantly, the mechanical action of breaking water molecules leads to the release of negative air ions, charged particles that are abundant near waterfalls, after storms, and in forest canopies. Peer-reviewed studies in environmental health have linked high concentrations of negative ions to improved mood, reduced stress, enhanced cognitive performance, and even modulation of serotonin levels in the brain, acting as a natural antidepressant. Concurrently, the inhalation of trace elements like iodine, essential for thyroid function, and magnesium, which can be absorbed in small amounts through the respiratory tract, contributes to systemic metabolic regulation. This is not pseudoscience. Controlled studies measuring cortisol levels, heart rate variability, and self-reported mood states consistently show a significant positive shift after exposure to coastal environments compared to urban settings, a phenomenon now rigorously studied under the frameworks of blue space therapy and ecological psychology. Then there is the water itself. Immersion in seawater or thalassotherapy utilizes the ocean's rich mineral composition, its magnesium, sulfate, potassium, and calcium, which can be absorbed through the skin, reducing inflammation, improving hydration, and aiding in the healing of wounds and skin conditions like psoriasis and eczema. The physical act of swimming in moving water provides natural resistance for full-body exercise, while the cold shock of typical ocean temperatures triggers vasoconstriction and a subsequent endorphin release, boosting the immune system and increasing alertness. But the benefits go deeper into our neural wiring. The visual and auditory sensory input of rolling waves under a pastel sky provides a perfect example of soft fascination, a key concept in attention restoration theory. Unlike the harsh, demanding fascination of a city street, which requires directed attention and leads to mental fatigue, the rhythmic, predictable, yet variable pattern of waves, the vast, unobstructed horizon line, and the soft, diffuse light of a pastel sky provide a gentle stimulus that allows the brain's directed attention network to rest and recover. This promotes a state of mindfulness and present moment awareness, effectively meditating without conscious effort. The sound of waves, with its broadband frequency spectrum dominated by low-frequency rumbles, has been shown to alter brainwave patterns, encouraging alpha and theta states associated with relaxation, creativity, and light meditation. Neuroscientific research using fMRI scans indicates that exposure to ocean sounds and scenes can decrease activity in the prefrontal cortex, the brain's hub for constant planning and worry, and increase connectivity in the default mode network, associated with introspection and calm. Furthermore, the color blue, dominant in the scene, is psychologically associated with stability, calm, and openness, triggering a mild, consistent positive emotional response. From an evolutionary standpoint, this makes profound sense. Coastal regions, with their access to protein-rich shellfish and moderate climates, were likely crucial corridors for human migration and settlement, meaning those ancestors who felt a sense of calm, attraction, and heightened awareness at the coast would have been more successful, embedding this preference deep in our genetic and psychological makeup. Therefore, your longing for the beach is a multisensory prescription written by millions of years of evolution and filled by a perfectly composed environment of negatively charged air, mineral-rich water, rhythmic sound, and restorative visuals. It is literal, tangible medicine for the modern mind and body. But to fully appreciate this gift, we must confront the forces that threaten it. This brings us to the urgent, inseparable shadow cast by our beautiful scene, the profound vulnerability of this entire system. That breathtaking vista of rolling waves under a pastel sky, with its dynamic beach and health-giving properties, is now one of the most threatened ecosystems on Earth. Not merely by local pollution, but by the global, interconnected crisis of climate change, sea level rise, and ocean acidification. And the data projecting the future of our world's coastlines is not a speculative fiction, but a concrete, models-based forecast that paints a startling picture of radical transformation within the lifespan of current generation, meaning the very concept of a stable, sandy beach is becoming an endangered idea, and understanding these threats is no longer academic. It is a prerequisite for any meaningful action to preserve the sensory and ecological wonder we have just described. The primary driver is anthropogenic climate change, fueled by greenhouse gas emissions. The warming atmosphere does two critical things to our waves and beaches. It increases the energy in the climate system, and it melts land-based ice. First, increased atmospheric and oceanic thermal energy leads to more frequent and more intense storms. Wave climatology studies using decades of buoy data already show a statistically significant increase in significant wave height and wave energy in many ocean basins, particularly in the Southern Ocean and the North Atlantic. This means the waves arriving at our shores are, on average, packing more destructive power, accelerating coastal erosion, and shifting the seasonal breathing of beaches toward a more permanent winter-like, eroded state. Second, and more inexorably, is thermal expansion of seawater and meltwater from glaciers and ice sheets causing sea level rise. Current rates are approximately 3 to 4 millimeters per year globally, but this rate is accelerating. The Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, IPCC, projects a likely range of global mean sea level rise between 0.3 to over 1 meter by 2100, depending on emission scenarios. This vertical change is catastrophic for horizontal beaches. The Bruin Rule, a foundational model in coastal geomorphology, states that for a given rise in sea level, a sandy beach will erode landward by 50 to 100 times that vertical rise. A 1 meter rise could therefore force the shoreline to retreat 50 to 100 meters, swallowing beaches, homes, and ecosystems. This is not a future guess, it is already observable. Satellite imagery analysis reveals that approximately 24% of the world's sandy beaches are already eroding at rates exceeding 0.5 meters per year. Alongside physical erosion comes a more insidious chemical threat: ocean acidification. As the ocean absorbs about 1/3 of humanity's excess atmospheric CO2, it undergoes a chemical reaction that lowers its pH, making it more acidic. This increased acidity directly attacks calcium carbonate, the building block for shells, corals, and the skeletal structures of countless marine organisms. The creatures that create the sand for tropical beaches, corals, mollusks, foraminifera, find it increasingly difficult to build and maintain their structures. In essence, we are not only washing away the existing beach, but also sabotaging the very factories that produce the future sand supply. Furthermore, the pastel skies we admire can be enhanced or altered by a polluted atmosphere. The same particulate matter that leads to vivid sunsets can also carry toxins that deposit into the ocean, while nutrient runoff from agriculture creates coastal dead zones choking near shore life. The convergence of these forces higher, more powerful waves, rising seas, acidifying water, and localized pollution creates a feedback loop of degradation. Beaches lose their width and volume. Their natural dune defenses are compromised, and they become less capable of buffering storm surges, leading to more catastrophic flooding inland. The loss of the beach is not just a loss of a recreational space. It is the loss of a critical buffer zone, a biodiversity hotspot, a carbon sink. In the case of seagrass meadows and mangroves often associated with coastal systems, and a universal source of human psychological restoration. The data leaves no room for ambiguity. The stale, accessible sandy beach of the 20th century is a transient feature in the Anthropocene. To witness waves under a pastel sky today is therefore to witness a moment of profound beauty that is simultaneously a fading snapshot in geologic time, unless our collective understanding and actions change course immediately. Which leads us to the final, most critical chapter: what we can actually do. So where does this leave us? We have journeyed from the deep ocean genesis of a wave, across the dynamic battlefield of the beach, into the healing chemistry of the surf, and confronted the sobering vulnerabilities of this entire system. This knowledge transforms the scene from a passive postcard into a living, breathing, and struggling entity. The final, essential question is not just one of understanding, but of agency. What can we, as individuals who feel this deep, perhaps now better understood, connection to the coast, actually do to ensure that future generations can also stand in awe of rolling waves under a pastel sky? The answer lies in moving beyond paralyzing despair and into the realm of informed, impactful action, leveraging both personal lifestyle choices and collective advocacy. Because the data shows that while the trends are dire, they are not yet entirely locked in, and coastal systems are remarkably resilient if given the chance to function naturally. The most powerful lever is addressing the root cause: climate change. This translates directly to reducing your carbon footprint, but in a strategic, high-impact way. Beyond the common advice, consider your financial and dietary footprint. Moving investments away from fossil fuel companies and towards sustainable technologies exerts direct pressure on capital flows. Adopting a diet reduced in meat, particularly red meat, significantly lowers your personal greenhouse gas emissions, as the livestock industry is a major methane source. Advocate for and support renewable energy in your community: solar, wind, geothermal. Every kilowatt hour generated from renewables instead of coal or gas is a direct reduction in the CO2 that is acidifying the ocean and fueling sea level rise. On a local level, become a steward of your nearest coastline, even if you don't live there. Support and volunteer with organizations dedicated to dune restoration, beach cleanups, which protect wildlife and prevent plastic from breaking down into toxic microplastics, and the removal of invasive plant species that destabilize coastal habitats. When visiting the beach, practice leave no trace principles rigorously. Take all your belongings and trash, avoid trampling on dune vegetation, and respect wildlife closures. Understand and advocate for nature-based coastal defense solutions. Instead of supporting hard engineering projects like seawalls that often exacerbate problems elsewhere, champion living shorelines projects that use oysters, mangroves, salt marshes, and strategically placed organic material to absorb wave energy, trap sediment, and create habitat. These solutions are often more cost-effective, adaptive, and ecologically beneficial in the long term. Use your voice as a citizen and consumer. Vote for leaders at all levels of government who base their policies on climate science and support strong coastal zone management plans, which restrict harmful development in high-risk erosion zones and protect natural buffers. Support businesses in coastal communities that demonstrate sustainable practices. Educate others. Share the profound, interconnected story you've learned today, not as a doomsday lecture, but as a narrative of awe, connection, and urgent hope. Explain how the wave, the beach, the air, and our own well-being are inextricably linked. When people understand that protecting the coast is also about protecting a fundamental source of human health and peace, the motivation deepens. Finally, never underestimate the power of simply fostering a deeper relationship with the coast. The more we value something, the more fiercely we will fight for it. Go to the beach. Breathe the ion-rich air. Feel the sand, that product of epic geologic struggle. Watch the waves, those travelers of immense energy. Marvel at the pastel sky, a product of pure physics. Let it restore you. And from that place of personal connection and restoration, let your actions flow. The ocean's resilience is legendary, but it requires a ceasefire in our war against the planet's systems. We must transition from being passive admirers of the coast to being its active, informed, and vocal defenders. This is where you come in, right now. This wasn't just a video about pretty scenery, it was a 5,000-word deep dive into the very soul of the coast. If this resonated with you, if you felt that click of understanding about why you love the beach so much, and why it's worth fighting for, then you cannot let this moment be passive. Your first, most powerful action is just a click away. Smash that like button. It tells the algorithm this knowledge matters and helps this video reach more people who need to hear this story. Subscribe to this channel and hit the notification bell, because we are just getting started. This is the first in a series of deep explorations into the hidden worlds of nature that shape our lives, and you won't want to miss what's coming next, where we'll deconstruct forests, mountains, and deserts with the same revelatory depth. But most importantly, start the conversation today. Share this video with one person, a friend, a family member who also loves the ocean. Talk to them about the wave's journey, the beach's breath, the science of solace, and the shared threat. Plant that seed of understanding. Then choose one action from that final chapter to implement this very week. Look at your investment portfolio. Join a local environmental group. Plan a mindful beach cleanup with friends, or simply write an email to a local representative asking about their coastal protection policy. The pastel sky and rolling waves are a gift, a medicine, and a masterpiece of planetary physics. They are counting on our awareness to turn into advocacy. Don't let this knowledge end with you. Be the voice for the coast. Like, subscribe, share, and act now.